Thank you, Professor Vyas, and all the panelists who were here. I think you all have set the tone for my talk. And I think I'm going to cover all that we spoke from the changing face of design education, but in profession. So I'm going to take, I think I have much lesser time than we had thought. I'll just check this. So what I'm going to talk about is we are a practice from Bombay. I'm going to talk about enhancing livability in a sustainable world. So I'm going to start with this little video, which is basically the most versatile creation of what nature has to offer. What you see, the honeycomb as a construction is completely versatile, sustainable, simple, beautiful, self-generated, and multifunctional. And what we as a collective do is exactly similar. So we are a collective of over 40 creatives, led by 4 of us, and we are based out of Bombay. We build across the country, across diverse landscape, and what that gives us is an opportunity to actually work towards different cultures, histories, climates, and geographies. I'm starting with a few very early projects of the practice, which is almost about 25 years old. And what we believe is in a deep introspection that we actually connect with nature, culture, histories, and the climate. This is a little wellness center or an Ayurvedic hospital that we had created in Malad. And it's a very tight little plot in Malad in the midst of a residential area. What you see over here is the world of Ayurveda thrives even today, 30 years later. These are the very few initial sketches which were inspired by the climate and the history of the space and the history of Ayurveda in general. A facade which is on the west completely shielded with the sun that you kind of ought to insulate. The eastern facade which has a lot of balconies. So what Bombay had 30 years ago were bylaws that allowed you for 10% FSI, which was free, given on balconies. We don't have that today. The bylaws have changed drastically, so you do see the changing face of how buildings appear in Bombay today. But what this gave us was a lovely space that was allowing. This is a hospital which actually allows for 300 OPD patients that step into this hospital on a daily basis. Now, what that means is that in a tight plot like this, you got to create a lot of waiting spaces. And what better ways than actually creating the balconies to allow you for those waiting spaces. This is what you see at the entrance. What this building ethos was really, we tried and used a lot of our structural elements in this building by using older elements of structural columns and jharokhas from the older Havelis in Ahmedabad. So we were recycling a lot of those woods and using them as structural elements here. You see the beauty of light that actually comes in streaming in the mornings. That's on the ground floor as you ascend towards the upper levels. These are the way the balconies were used, and the materiality was really simple. Red terracotta, a lot of resemblance from what you see as ancient histories and the native and the vernacular. A lot of wood. And a lot of recycled wood in terms of doors and windows, and that little jharokha that you see right outside the doctor's cabin. On the top level on this building, we had the nursing rooms, and these nursing rooms are basically, they allow for treatments for 3 months to 6 months, so you have a lot of patients who come and live over here. And that opens up to this lovely terrace that they can kind of go and use that outside. And at the ground floor, you have a cafe, which is like a Sattvic cafe, which allows you to have Ayurvedic food, deeply steeped into the concept of Ayurveda. So this is what is the world of Ayurveda in this little building that we built 30 years ago. I'm moving to another building, which is a factory in Karur. This is in Tamil Nadu, in south of India. And this is a factory in a weaver's town. Karur is basically the export hub for home furnishings. And a lot of export happens from here outside of the country. And what it is basically homegrown of a lot of weaving fabrics. And what the brief was to actually create a hugely humane workspace for people to actually be able to send out these products into the outside world. And what you see is the products go out in the bullock cart like that and actually appear in international stores when made-ups kind of go into these spaces. Now, Karur is a city which is in Tamil Nadu, a very hot and dry city. This was a plot which was by the road, a very narrow little plot, 30,000 square feet. And that's what you see as the cultural context of Karur. That's what the architectural vocabulary of the space and the little town is. A lot of sloping roofs, a lot of gable walls, very beautifully nuanced gables, a lot of verandas, a lot of courtyards, a lot of stone and quarry work that you see with raised up temples. These are the beautiful courtyards and verandas in that little town. And at the same time, what you were seeing is this export world of factories that were coming up in Karur was just full of Alucobond and glass buildings, which was absolutely a disservice to what you can do to people who are going to be working there in that space. So what we ended up doing is, these are the key challenges for us to really work out a very highly functional space, because factory spaces are completely efficient if your planning is absolutely efficient. It allows you for your workflow and your production to kind of go to another level if you've planned it well enough. Make it climatically comfortable, absolutely naturally lit, because these are homegrown weaves that need absolute clarity in terms of how colors get perceived and what the space has to offer. This is an absolutely non-air-conditioned space. It's only naturally ventilated. And a very highly cost-effective design with the use of local technology and a lot of skills from the local people. So I won't get into, this is not a set of architects here, so I won't get into the planning aspect of it, but just trying to show you through these very basic diagrams as well that how planning becomes a highly efficient aspect of operations. And how the flow was kept in one linear direction, and when all the ancillary spaces kind of became adjacent to it. And what that was interspersed with is a lot of courtyards that allowed you to breathe, allowed you to interact, allowed you to harvest rainwater, and allowed you to take pauses through the day. That's the basic sketch of how we started off with this building. Climate played a very important role in making sure that we're able to give this space a very comfortable aspect, and hence courtyards became a very important role of design, vaulted roofs and a stone cocoon. Now, what we realized is that we end up doing a lot of deep research before we actually get into a project. And what we realized is that Karur is very close to the equator. So unlike any other area which is not as close to the equator, you could afford a north light. But Karur and this area couldn't afford a north light, so we designed it as a vaulted roof with a monitor light. What that allows you is, you'll see in the slides further, a very beautiful, even tone of light inside the space. These are some of the courtyards that you keep seeing as you harvest water, as you interact through them, as you pass by them and really take a pause and a relief. And you can see the pauses that you take here. These are the vaulted roofs that I just mentioned on how beautifully the light kind of comes in, and that's the quality of light you need for checking the fabrics. These were built highly sustainably with these Hurdi blocks, which are hollow terracotta blocks, and that basically brings you thermal insulation into the space. This is the way the workspaces today get used, where you see the minimal use of artificial lighting, and that's the kind of output you see in the space. These are the other vocabularies that we were using when it came to the vernacular and interpreting that in a modern take while we were doing vaulted roofs and the gables. And the entire building is shielded with a cocoon of stone masonry, which basically completely shields it from the heat. And to do so, we actually used a lot of local skills, and this skill had lost at that point while we were doing this. So we did realize that, when you don't have the skills sustaining in a place, to bring that skill back is a lot of effort. And we did put that effort in bringing that skill back and teaching them how to do simple random rubble masonry, which is so common across the country. We also used a lot of country wood, and what you see over here is the country wood was strapped with a lot of ironmongery, simply done from these locksmith makers from Dindigul. Dindigul is a little metalsmith town very close to Karur, and we were using those skills as well to make this happen. The other thing that we did over here was not using door frames, and that reduced our cost hugely to try and put together these strap detailing across the country wood shutters. What you see in the floor is the simple Athangudi tiles. Chettinad is very close to this little town of Karur, and we use these beautiful terracotta tiles. And what you see here is a space for everybody, and a space for the people who inhabit this. And what you see is also complete empathy in the space, you know, the kind of pauses they end up taking at the end of their day or in the middle of their day. And that's what you see as the smiles. So what we had got for this one was the Tucker Award, which is a US-based award for stone buildings. This is another building right here in Bombay, which is for Mahindra. It's the design center for Mahindra, where a lot of their cars get conceptualized, a high secrecy space. What we were trying to do through this space was really conserving and adapting to the existing sheds. We did not want to break any of them. We completely used them to the effect that we could create the brief that was asked for. We were given 4 sheds. 3 sheds were completely adapted and reused and repurposed from a structural point of view. One of the sheds was elevated as a double height space to ensure that we are meeting with our requirements. So yeah, our main purpose was to retain and not to replace, and how much to replace, and to make a seamless working of a very complex set of design processes that go through in producing a car as a product. So this is what will give you a very clear indication of how we conserved 3 sheds, added the 4th shed as a double height space, and yet another shed as a new block. This is how we finally got this space in. What was really important over here is, again, cars like they are perceived on the road with daylight. How do you ensure that these cars are perceived with enough daylight into the internal space? So emulating daylight into a space like this was very, very critical. We were trying connections in between the old and the new with skylights and staircases. The use of materiality was very highly purposeful from the industrial nature of what you see in the factories. So a lot of cotton steel, a lot of GI, a lot of metal, a lot of riveted detailing across. So that's how you see the beautiful light streaming through these staircases. And we were inspired by what we saw on the factory floor. So what you saw on the factory floor were these mudguards which were kept together, and that inspired us to create a screen in metal that allowed for privacy between the office that was created on a mezzanine and the display area at the bottom. So these are just a lot of mock-ups that we did, and you do see in these last 3 that design is never a process that you can go and put up there. You know, mock-ups become a very, very important thing, and even if there are blemishes, what you see in the design, it is a memory of history that you created before you actually put that out. Architecture is one field where you don't have the scope for edits. Once you produce it, it's there for lifetime. So it just becomes a very, very intensive process that you follow before you put it up there. Just a lot of detailing on how metal and metal was kind of juxtaposed together. That's how you see these sheds, and that's what the design studio entrance looks like. Just a lot of detailing. We end up doing a lot in terms of these mock-ups to make sure that they finally end up right. And the processes are very intensive. And what you see is this, a very raw shell in concrete, which is enhanced by the use of wood, metal, and glass at times. This is the new block, and the new block basically helps with the functions like the library, the lounge, the conference spaces. And there's a rotating table right outside in the lawn over here, which actually has the cars displayed for the outside. So that's what we talk about, the harmony in the connections that you see in a space like this. This one won us something called the Chicago Athenaeum Award, which is usually given to museum quality spaces. The next project I'm showing you is a hotel that we've done in Tirupati. This is a trail of hotels that we're doing in the religious tourism spots in the country. Tirupati is one of the wealthiest temple towns in the country, and what it is, it's the abode of Lord Vishnu. And what you see over here is thriving 20 million people that visit this place every year. What we were creating was an oasis of divinity, as opposed to what you enter into the chaos of the temple and try to get that 10-second visual of Vishnu inside the Garbhagriha. It was an antithesis to what we wanted to create this space as, where it was calm, it was divine, and it was serene. What Tirupati as a landscape is the Saptagiri, which is the 7 hills. And our site was right at the foothill of one of the 7 hills. That's where the site is, and that's where the Tirumala complex is, roughly about 20 kilometers away, and at an elevation of 3,000 feet. Celebration is something that people come to Tirupati from, and we were celebrating that through the architecture of this building that we were creating. This was a plot which was roughly about 3¼ acre. What is very important in hospitality is, again, seamless movements of guests and staff, and that was ensured as we kind of planned this. And this planning was inspired a lot by symbology and the temple planning of what the Tirumala temple involved. So highly orthogonal, highly introverted, very highly circumambulatory, and this was inspired by the Tirupati temple complex. And there were references taken and inferences taken to plan it accordingly for the architecture of the building. I won't go through this, I'll just run through what the building does. And it was inspired by the Pushkarni that you have even on the temple top, which basically is a sacred tank where you kind of clean yourself before you enter into the temple. That was one of the inspirations to create a really large water body and a courtyard in the hotel. And the whole material palette is inspired by Vishnu or Venkateshwara's appearance. So this is what you see at the entrance as you enter. You see the glint of the black and the gold used in the structural systems. We believe in a structure which is absolutely light and how lightly it treads onto the ground, and not believe in something that you add cladding and false ceilings, because what's true is the nature of structures that you can offer. A lot of referencing from the symbological aspects of the temple gopurams. This is one of the all-day dining which was inspired by the lotus, which is the constant emblem that you see across the 10 avatars of Vishnu. The construction of the Lotus Cafe, which is an all-day dining space done in metal. How metal was crafted to create a very thin-edged ferrocrete roof that you see over here. And the entire aspect was using the geometry of the lotus and transferring that into a roofscape that could be experienced both from inside and outside. The hotel was also interconnected with the concept of the Dashavatar and the 10 avatars of Vishnu, and how public spaces were utilized with the symbology, the emotion, and the characteristic that each of the avatars display. I'm showing you one of them, which is Narsimha, which is basically the Lotus Cafe. The way we took the poetic license to actually interpret it was Narsimha is neither man nor lion, neither day nor night, neither the threshold of water nor land. And that's how we kind of located the Lotus Cafe at the fringe of the water and the land. This is Krishna, highly versatile. I'm just showing you some of the palettes. And this was a thali restaurant which served food from all across the country. And that's how versatility of Krishna and the symbology and iconography of Krishna was embodied in a space like this, which was at the threshold of water and land, but caved into this entire block, and that's how you see it in the night. And what we did was we literally worked with the crafts of the region. Dokra was one of the crafts that we worked with. We challenged the artists from Chhattisgarh to actually create these Dokra artworks, not just in form of static artworks, but also as handles. And those handles are the ones that you see across the doors in the space, and these are huge. What Dokra artists in Bastar or Kondaga really do are figurine-style sizes of objects with the Dokra method of craft. But this was challenging them to create something much beyond their usual comfort. You'll see the scales of how these work. This is high. This is like a 5 feet tall handle. Some others which were used in the graphics of the spaces to embody what each of the spaces was. Rama was the social man, so was associated with the banquets. That's how you see the space. And this one is the Prix Versailles, which is a French award for UNESCO buildings that actually are steeped in the cultural aspects of the space. But of course, this is a greenfield project, and it's not a conservation project. The next project in the similar line is a project in Bodh Gaya. This is again for the same clients, but a different religious connotation. We know Bodh Gaya is located in Bihar, and Bihar was one of the oldest civilizations that was known to India when it came to education, when it came to Nalanda, and the beauty of what the structures used to be then. Today, Bihar is again a lot of brick kilns, but not the same like you see earlier. And Bihar is the place where two religions actually originated, both Buddhism and Jainism originated in Bihar. And the Mahabodhi temple is right here in the context, hardly about 3 kilometers from the hotel that we have built. So we were basing our entire concept was on the tenets of Buddhism and how historical connotations of architecture in the region influence the building. So whether it is embodying the emotional aspect of the religion, whether it's embodying the historical aspect of it, or whether it's the architecture that we created finally. So this is a site which is roughly about 5 acres, and it's a resort property. We've kind of used the layout highly efficiently to make sure that we are able to use the sun and the wind very effectively. A lot of sustainability practices have been embodied in this site to make sure that water is retained all through the year. These are some of the glimpses of what you see. A lot of connotations from the architectural vocabulary of the region that's been used here. The memory of the brick from the old has been utilized on the inside. The memory of the vault was used in the structures. You see this across the cafe, you see this across various different aspects, and this is what you see in Bihar. This part of Bihar, you see a lot of country tiles. So what we did was, we engaged about 26 families from 12 villages to create almost about 80,000 of these tiles. And what these do to our building is they highly insulate the building. They bring down the temperature by almost 4 degrees. And we are saving almost 4.5% on our electricity bills by ensuring that we are insulating our roofs. And I don't say that only for air-conditioned spaces. We have a lot of non-air-conditioned spaces in the hotel, so it adds to the comfort factor of what you experience on the inside. That's basically the central courtyard. The layering of the plan is very clear. You have an open-to-sky space, a semi-open space, and then the closed-door spaces. Some of the images as you enter, the sideways, the pool area, and a lot of passive energy strategies were used right from evaporative cooling to make sure that the water bodies that we created allowed for the cool wind to kind of pass through and allowed for cross-ventilation into these spaces. A lot of water conservation methods utilized so that the water is retained in the land, which was earlier a very highly dry land. Before we actually got into this site, the site was absolutely dry, and we did not have the water during the summers, which we do have now. And we're doing that through open collection ponds as well as recharging into the earth. These are some of the diagrams that just tell you how rainwater from the rooftop is conserved, augmented, and added into the aquifers through these percolation wells. This is what you see the guest rooms as, with this water-conserved pond in front of it. The nature of the pond keeps changing through the year. When it's raining, it's topped till the brim. When it's hot, it dissipates and it recedes down. And we worked with the concept of the Vajradhatu Mandala, which is one of the most important mandalas which depict the Dhyani Buddhas. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but what I'm trying to get to is design is also interpretation. So how you interpret each one of these and correlate it with the emotion or the spatial quality is something that brings about the second layer, which, or the third layer, which you don't usually see in the most obvious. So these are most of the kinds of permutations we followed to depict and to define our spaces. I'm going to show you some of these, which is like depiction of the rain at that reception. So when you enter that reception, you just get this whole quality of light that's flowing through. And a lot of this was used across the signages, the wayfinding across the hotel, by using stone, engraving, copper. This is again won a lot of awards, international and Indian. This is a little space that we created at Shakti Mills right next door over here. It's an 800 square foot space for retail for a brand called Forest of Chins, which deals in a lot of very highly crafted, handcrafted items, whether it's totes or whether it's jewelry. And what we were inspired by were the Stepwells of India. What Steps offer is the aspect of celebration on how the product can be displayed, and that's what we did with this very little space which had an eastern facade with light streaming in. We wanted to keep it really simple and try and make sure that the products are the protagonist and not the shell. The shell is absolutely neutral. We studied the way each of these products would be engaged with, at what heights you kind of manage them, and how do you interface with them when you're kind of doing retail or merchandising. And that's what the space looks like. It has these steps created for various different products at various different levels across the perimeter of the space, and the center is this distressed mirror, which basically reflects all of it back in the center. A beautiful play of these brass lights that in the night completely glint. That's some of the detailing of what and how we did it. What you see over here is just basic concrete cement plaster ghutai that was used across the entire space to create that absolutely neutral palette for the product to really be standing out. This project is basically a house in Alibag, and what we were inspired by was the way the leaves were strewn onto this site. This is an inland site not close to the beach, unlike other sites in Alibag. And what it came with was a dense grove of coconut and mango and neem trees. And what we decided to do was actually build around these trees and create something which was unlike what you would otherwise build. So something which was a very inside-out house, something which was inspired by the concept of living in pods, inspired by not having something which is orthogonal, because all our movements as human beings are never orthogonal. We are always kind of, whether it's dance or whether it's notes, it's basically non-orthogonal. How do you protect it from the rains of monsoon, Alibag, which is absolutely torrential, and how do we match up to collaborate with the client who had the vision to build in this manner? So what you see, this home is basically a study of how living in pods and living in a manner that's with nature but disconnected from each other. So not every single space as you navigate between two spaces ought to be covered. That's not what it requires to do. Because you're using this as a weekend home, you do not need it to be strictly guided by every single space being closed up. So what we did was created these pods, which was inspired by the leaves, wove them around the trees, and created that. So what you have here is the largest leaf is the living pod, which is a non-air-conditioned space, completely open to the elements in terms of the wind and the sun coming through, of course not the rains. And what you see here is that's the living pod. And that's right in the middle of where you have a water-conserved marine ecosystem on the right side and a pool on the left side. Some of the images of how you see the simplicity of even materiality. We played with just few materials, which was concrete, kota stone, local wood with just basic linseed oiling, and timber for the decks. We thrive on these water bodies because these water bodies really create that calm and the evaporative cooling effect that's required in a space like this. Materially, what you see is the roof is constructed out of concrete, and this was the most challenging aspect of what we built here. In the most frugal manner, because resources were limited. We were in a little village in Alibag where we couldn't get technology to really play an important role, but we worked with the human hand and we worked with the resources that were available to us to create it. We ebbed and swelled the roof such that you were protecting it from the ferocious southwest monsoons in Alibag, but we opened it up on the north and the east to bring in the lights. You see how these junctions of the leaves intertwine into each other so that you ensure that the rain doesn't kind of pass through. And you have your safe moments of crossing over between spaces. There were courtyards created where the largest trees gave us their way. And this was literally imagining the veins of the roof while you were even creating the shuttering drawing. Shuttering drawings is basically how carpentered ply comes together to cast the roof, and concrete is as good as what its carpentry details for the shuttering is. So what you see here is basically emulating that with very specific, simple drawings that could be built in the most frugal manner. You can imagine we did not even have metal props at that time. These were just casuarina props, which are usually not used because of the line level issues when you're constructing flat roofs. But here, we managed to completely get our precision in place with what we wanted. You see the making of these roofs, and that's the final product. And we ensured that whenever we closed a roof or closed a space for air conditioning, like this is the den, you did it in a manner that the glass doesn't go and meet with the concrete in a very heavy manner, so very discreetly done. Some of the way the spaces internally have been used and how light pierces through. That's some of the images of how they occupy and they live in this. And today it's like an oasis of greens, so you can barely even see the leaves, and it's the greens that have taken over completely in this landscape that you see beyond of the hills. Unlike that being a single home, this is a home that we created in Chennai, and this was a home for multi-users in a city like Chennai, which is hot, dusty, and full of mosquitoes. It was a single client who was a developer coming to build this particular building, and what we were focusing on was how the sense of community ought to be retained in a space like this. I'm just going to run very quickly through this. I'm running out of time. That's the central core where the community sense is enabled. What we ensured was that each of these homes were like Rubik's Cube. They were basically interlocked and staggered to make sure that each residence is a duplex that gets an entrance right from the center as a private entrance. And the staircase is a common one, whether it is for the staff or whether it's for people. They use the same staircase, unlike fire escape staircases that you see in buildings today, where you do not get to interact with people and you do not interface people. Vastu was a very important aspect of building these buildings. And what we did was we ensured that we're using the compliances of the city to our benefit to be able to design it in a manner that we could give them deeper balconies. And we created a skin or a shell which was thermally insulated given the climate of Chennai. Now, the brief that we were given was these should be absolutely fully air-conditioned buildings and fully air-conditioned apartments, and they did not need to open. We worked with the brief to go beyond it and convince to the client that that shouldn't be the approach, and we made these as completely cross-ventilated homes. You get your air conditioning when you want to use it, but you use it at other times completely cross-ventilated. And the way in which we did this was by using a lot of convection currents for the center. What you see the skin does is the skin reduces the entire temperature to the inside by 6 degrees. And you can see that little expression of how we did that, using privacy but allowing for winds to come in, but also be able to look out into the uninterrupted views of the beautiful rain tree outside. Just a lot of pictures of how we managed to do this. And that's how it glows like a lantern in the night. I'm going to skip the video of this one and go directly to the last project. And this is a film studio in Bangalore that we created. And the brief was very simple, that we could ideate from any space. We do not need closed-door spaces to really ideate. A very tight plot in Bangalore, very typical of Bangalore, a 60 by 40 plot. And what we managed to do in this plot was create a oasis of spaces for thoughts to really play. And for Nirvana Films is one of the most cutting-edge advertisement filmmakers in the country today. And what space we were able to give them was something that was completely out of the box. In a constrained space, we created this entire courtyard with a staircase that was used for communication, for interaction. You see how the play of light happens right from the top, streaming right till the bottom. We were using elements that were keeping us at bay from our peering neighbors on one side. And this is a building which is totally non-air conditioned. Even today, after 10 years of occupying this building and with the climate change and the change in temperatures, they do not have air conditioning even added today. And it's working that way because of the way we've shielded the entire building and opened it up inside out. Just some of the sections that show you how these interactions work. There's the production space that overlooks a beautiful mahogany tree. This is the director's space, that's the dining space. And practicing pause was very important to us, whether it was, orchestrated pause or whether it was a terrace that came in. Conference spaces were in the semi-open, they were not closed-door conference spaces. Dining again. And then the bathrooms became a complete reverse of the light that you see outside by doing a completely black bathroom which allowed for the pause inside. What we used over here in these, what you see, these white are basically solid acrylic surfaces that were used in the country for the first time, very highly researched and processed in terms of the mock-ups to make it work the way we're seeing it. This was one of our northern side where we had peering neighbors. We wanted to maintain their privacy as well as allow for the wind to come through.